As I hope I've made clear in this podcast, A Christmas Carol is about a whole lot more than simply Ebenezer Scrooge not liking Christmas. The problem is that he doesn't like what it represents. However, some adaptations decide that this isn't enough and think that their Scrooge should change in another way. An American Carol would rather have him love the 4th of July. The Rich Little Christmas Carol also wants him to give up drinking. The first adaptation we're talking about today also wants Scrooge to change his mind on rock and roll. It's one of the most influential books ever written. Even if you've never read Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, you are familiar with it. My name is Colin Murr, and I've loved this story for as long as I can remember. I'm going to be looking at every film and TV adaptation of A Christmas Carol I can, because I love the story that much. Join me this season as I go from Mickey Mouse to the Muppets on Scrooge, A Christmas Carol podcast. Season 2, Episode 3, Rock and Roll and Puppets. But you might ask, how can Scrooge have an opinion on rock and roll when he was an old man in 1843, approximately 100 years before the genre was invented? That doesn't seem to be a question this special is interested in answering. The 1984 special Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas establishes that Victorian-era Ebenezer Scrooge somehow exists in 1984. Here's the only explanation we get.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas humbug, what do you want?
Isn't this the record store?
Record store? What's a record store?
Our character, simply known as the girl, played by Lee Benton, believes she's walking into a record store, but she discovers instead that she's in Ebenezer Scrooge's counting house. How did it get there? What happened to the record store? We're never told. It doesn't matter. Scrooge somehow got transported from 1843 England to 1984 United States, and that's all that matters. Scrooge is played by Jack Elam. Look, I'm not a purist when it comes to Americans playing Brits or vice versa. There's an iconic Scrooge portrayal from this very year by an American. It's just, Jack Elam was almost exclusively known as an American Western actor, and it shows. He's not doing an accent and is just distracting. Lee Benton has actually been in good movies like Scarface and Nocturnal Animals, albeit in fairly small roles. That said, the two of them are barely in this at all. Their scenes are just an excuse to wrap around the music. Anyway, the girl comes in and says
I need one last-minute present for someone really groovy. Maybe something from the Beach Boys.
Okay, I know Scrooge traveled from 1843, but clearly this woman has time traveled from sometime before 1974, if she's looking for something groovy by the Beach Boys. When the girl suggests getting into the Christmas spirit, Scrooge says she's no better than Bob Cratchit, who wanted the day off. It's presumably Christmas Eve, but this quote suggests it's Christmas Day. At least we get a mention of Bob Cratchit, even though he's not anywhere in this. The girl shows Scrooge her magic snow globe that can apparently conjure up rock and roll performances of Christmas songs. All right, who does she lead with? You're going to introduce someone to rock and roll for the first time. You really have to come out swinging. Do you go with a legend or someone who's really making hits in 1984? If it has to be Christmas music, you gotta lead with Chuck Berry, seeing as how he even has a famous Christmas song, right? Instead, she leads with Three Dog Night, neither a legendary group nor a 1984 hitmaker. I mean, they had a song called Joy to the World, but people know that's not a Christmas song, right? Maybe there was just a misunderstanding. For those curious about the 1980s part of the Three Dog Night story, and hi to both of you, the group apparently broke up in the 1970s but reunited in the 80s with its three core members. So, while this may not be the group at the height of their powers, it is still authentic Three Dog Night. And as was par for the course with them, they sing a song they didn't write and do nothing interesting with it.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party house. Mistletoe hung where you can see.
If you're gonna sing a song like Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, it should at least seem like you're having fun. Instead, they're just lined up and standing in place, with the singer singing part of the verse until the next one takes over. Then, when the guitar solo starts, some women come in and start dancing with them. Dancing may be generous, since they're really just awkwardly clapping. I mean, the look of the musical numbers isn't helping. They're all shot, well, at least almost all, at a ski resort with long takes and unimaginative editing. They're not music videos, but they're not live performances either, so it's just kind of cringy. The musical scenes were directed by Lou Tedesco, best known for being the director on a number of old game shows. The scenes in Scrooge's Counting House were directed by a man named Bob Franchini, who was also a producer on this but has no other credits on the Internet Movie Database. Also, while this special first aired on November 24th, 1984, it has a copyright of 1983. Additionally, there's an album called Christmas Party, which has the full versions of most of the songs in this special, and that appears to also have come out in 1983. Honestly, I'm not sure if the album came first and they built this special around it and then re released it with images from that special, or if the special came first and the album was released alongside it. If someone who watched this when it came out or bought the album knows, please let me know. I actually am very curious about this. There's just so little information on either one. Anyway, the mustache rock version of Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree doesn't do it for Scrooge, so the girl shows him Merrily Rush singing White Christmas. Rush was best known for her song Angel of the Morning, which is a fine song and all, but it came out in 1967. In the eyes of the public, she was essentially a one-hit wonder, and this was 17 years after her big hit. Imagine Lou Bega popping up in the 2016 Christmas special and you'll get the idea. Rush sings less than 2 minutes of White Christmas, and they've had enough of her, apparently. It's weird to go for a big ending when you're only doing 2 minutes of a song. If you're really engaged by it, you can listen to the whole song on the album. It's a very 80s arrangement, but it's White Christmas. There aren't too many bad versions. It's not anything interesting, but it's fine. That's all that Merrily Rush gets in this, by the way. Most artists get a second song, but not her. She's in a medley at the end, but that's it. So somehow, a 1984 performance from Three Dog Night and 90 seconds of Merrily Rush don't convince Scrooge about Christmas or rock and roll. The girl knows she has to bring in the big guns now. She has to wow him with a rock and roll legend, and she gets Paul Revere and the Raiders. Yeah, that'll win over a Victorian British man, a band who dresses like they're in the American Revolution. Brilliant. Apparently, despite having their biggest hits in the mid 60s, the Raiders had something of a comeback as the new wave artists covered some of their songs. There were a lot of lineup changes. The lead singer here is clearly not someone who would have been old enough to sing on their 60s hits, but the one named Paul Revere, that is actually his real name, is still there, mostly acting like a silent movie clown during the performances. They perform Jingle Bells. Oh, great, the most boring Christmas song of all. However, unlike Merrily Rush, they get to do a full performance, including the obscure A Day or Two Ago I Thought I'd Take a Ride verse. It's also done in this awkward, slow, white man reggae style that's just bizarre.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Scrooge says that it's too loud, which is hilarious based on what we've just heard. Next up on the docket of alleged rock and roll legends is Bridget. Oh, you've never heard of Bridget? That's okay. The movie will introduce you to her, and then you'll never see her again in anything. She has this one IMDb credit, and it doesn't even tell us her last name. To be fair, the movie does at least admit that she's not known yet instead of acting like she's a known entity. The mystery of Bridget has been questioned by pretty much anyone who has ever seen this thing. Under the YouTube video, you can find comments asking who she is, and you can find the same discussions other places online. The only thing is, no one has any answers. It gets weirder, though. This thing, believe it or not, has been released on home video more than once. Actually, there are 3 releases. 2 of them don't have Bridget's song at all, despite leaving her name in the opening credits. If you find a version of this that's 37 minutes long instead of 43, you've got the version without Bridget or her introduction. Okay, it still gets weirder. The aforementioned album called Christmas Party, which is something of a soundtrack to this, also doesn't have Bridget. I am trying to figure out what happened here, but Bridget is clearly the outlier. To complicate things even more, Bridget appears to be the only one not recording her video at the same ski resort everyone else recorded it at. I'm not joking about this ski resort thing, by the way, it's credited in the closing credits. Bridget's just standing between 2 large stones. I mean, maybe it's at the same place, but it doesn't have the vibe that every other location has. She sings Some Children See Him, a lesser known Christmas carol written in the 1950s, calling for racial harmony no matter how someone sees Jesus. Each culture paints him, portrays him differently, and the point is that it's all the same Jesus. She sings it mostly a cappella. It does sound like there's a synth or a choir or a synth choir under her, and it's definitely not rock and roll. But you know what? It's absolutely gorgeous.
Some children see him lily white, the baby Jesus born this night.
Bridget, I have no idea who you are or where you are now, but if you ever come upon this, just know that you gave literally the only moving performance in this whole thing. If it's her choice not to appear in re-releases, that's fine, good for her. But if it was anyone else's choice, what were they thinking? Scrooge admits that Bridget's song was pretty, but says that Paul Revere and the Raiders probably couldn't sing like that, so the girl shows him the Raiders singing Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire. Great. 15 minutes in, and we're already repeating artists. It's an 80s power ballad version of the song, and they aren't even syncing their instruments properly to the backing track. Can we get Bridget back? Whatever, no one seemed to care about how they're properly performing the song. Alright, now that's out of the way, we can get to the real star of this special, Mike Love of the Beach Boys. If you judge it solely by number of songs, this appears to be Mike Love's baby, which would explain why he's never acknowledged it in public. His first number is Do You Hear What I Hear, which he sings with Mary McGregor. McGregor had a number 1 hit in 1976 with Torn Between Two Lovers, and then had a series of non-starter singles after that. Her last album came out in 1980, and her last single was released in 1981, so this wasn't exactly the height of her powers. McGregor and Love sing Do You Hear What I Hear, while standing on a bridge, with McGregor holding a lamb who looks like it's constantly trying to escape. Mike Love won't stop petting the thing either. It's so awkward. Do You Hear What I Hear is a good song, but the singers' voices don't blend, and it has this horrible Casio keyboard production that really brings it down.
In your palace, warm, mighty king, do you know what I know?
Next up, it's Mike Love again. 1984 was a pretty low point for the Beach Boys. Dennis Wilson had died in 1983, Carl Wilson had quit the band and then rejoined, and Brian Wilson was struggling with his mental health and once again being treated by the corrupt and manipulative Eugene Landy. The band was still touring, but Mike Love also had the side project of Mike and Dean, made up of himself and Dean Torrance of Jan and Dean. He was Dean. This wasn't just something thrown together for the special. The girl insists that the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean were
Right there when rock and roll really became big, even before the British invasion.
alright, so here's the deal. Quick history lesson. If you think that Elvis was the beginning of rock and roll, you're racist. If you think Jan and Dean and the Beach Boys were the beginning of rock and roll, you're just stupid. Mike and Dean sing Jingle Bell Rock, which is so much like what we've heard before that I actually had to pause and go check if we'd already heard someone do Jingle Bell Rock. The lip syncing is absolutely dreadful on this, with the wrong singer often lip syncing over the other's solo vocal. How did no one catch this? Scrooge comments on the sled in the video and says that he hates Christmas because his childhood sled Rosebud was stolen by another child. A Citizen Kane reference. Sure, why not? The girl does have an amusing comeback to that line, at least.
You can't blame rock and roll for that.
Next, we get back-to-back songs from The Association, who hadn't had a top 40 hit since 1968. I'm sensing a theme here. The large ensemble was best known for hits like Cherish and Windy, but I don't think they've ever been a household name. Here they sing Sleigh Ride and Home for the Holidays. Next up, Bobby Goldsboro is singing Winter Wonderland. His last top 40 hit was in 1973, meaning he's one of the newest hit makers in this thing. That said, I don't think his signature song Honey is anyone's idea of rock and roll, and he was more famous at this point as a country singer, with some moderately successful hits on that chart. His vocal is very much in line with the style he was famous for, but the arrangement actually is rock and roll for once, with a rollicking piano and a wall of sound style production. It's not great or anything, but at least it is rock and roll.
In the meadow we can build a snowman and pretend that he's a circus clown. We'll have lots of fun with Mr. Snowman.
Next up, it's, you guessed it, even more Mike Love. He's all over this thing like it's a 20-year-old female fan. However, he doesn't show up in the magic snow globe. Oh no, he just walks into Scrooge's office, also thinking it's a record store. Probably wondering why no one's buying the Beach Boys 1980s albums. Despite earlier saying that she's looking for a Beach Boys record, and establishing that she's a Beach Boys fan, the girl isn't shocked by his appearance. Love then comes up behind Scrooge and the girl and puts his arms around them. However, instead of seeming friendly, it genuinely looks like he's holding them down to make sure they don't run away. Elam is trying to act charmed by it all, since Scrooge is reformed now. But Lee Benton really looks like she's disassociating here. You can see her constantly trying to make sure Mike's hand doesn't get any closer to her chest than it already is, and it's really uncomfortable. Mike Love sings a bland, mid-tempo version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, an otherwise beautiful song. But Love decided the arrangement wasn't bad enough, and he wanted to add some new lyrics. Yes, apparently the man who thought he could add lyrics to Under the Boardwalk is gonna go ahead and ruin another classic.
Christmas future is far away. Christmas past is past. Christmas present is here today, bringing joy that will last.
Great, meaningful added lyrics, Mike. Wait, that melody sounds familiar. What is it?
Christmas morning's finally here. We counted the hours, we watched it draw near.
It's the same tune as a song from a special Sesame Street Christmas. Just to be clear, I'm not actually accusing Mike Love of plagiarism here, just bad songwriting. It's only a funny coincidence. When I genuinely accuse someone of plagiarism, you'll know. Scrooge says, God bless us, everyone. All of the guests wish him a Merry Christmas, and we end with, We wish you a Merry Christmas and Auld Lang Syne. This thing is just so underwhelming. We get bland arrangements of well-known songs sung by singers who haven't had a big hit in a decade or more. With the exception of Bridget, again, great performance. Jack Elam is just kind of there, and the Scrooge role doesn't really offer anything. It's just not really a Christmas Carol adaptation. Want even more Scrooge, a Christmas Carol podcast? Just go to my Patreon at patreon.com/Scrooge, a Christmas Carol podcast, where for just $5 a month you can get a bonus episode every month of the year. There I cover various TV shows versions of A Christmas Carol, and this month I'll be covering Family Ties, A Keaton Family Christmas. For $10 a month, you can even vote on what episode I do next. Additionally, for just $1 a month, you can get all episodes 24 hours early. Again, just go to patreon.com/Scrooge, a Christmas Carol podcast, or follow the link in the description. All right, enough about that one. Let's move on to the one from 1985 that is even more obscure. Buckaneezer Scrooge. Swab the deck, grab a glass of rum, and raise the Jolly Roger, because we're talking about the stingiest pirate to ever sail the seven seas. When you hear the title Buckaneezer Scrooge, there's only one thing you're expecting, so you might be surprised when you start watching this 24-minute special and realize it has absolutely nothing to do with pirates. So why is he called Buckaneezer Scrooge? Alright, Scrooge is played by Ron Buckshot Barge. Yeah, that's what he went with. Ron Buckshot Barge, a children's entertainer. I'm using entertainer in the loosest sense possible here, not the Scott Joplin sense. He was from Calgary, Alberta, and hosted a local kids show in Calgary, The Buckshot Show, from 1967 to 1997, sometimes even 7 days a week. That's kind of weird. His character was a cowboy named Buckshot. However, in Buckaneezer Scrooge, he doesn't appear to be playing this character, so I'm not sure what the point is. I guess he didn't want to call it Ebenezer Scrooge. The clips I have found of the Buckshot show are from late in the show's run, and it appears that Barge, despite his experience, doesn't seem comfortable in front of a camera. Additionally, the show appears to be quite cheap, with a Christmas special I found being filmed at, I'm not kidding, a Chuck E. Cheese. I don't want to tear into this show too hard. I'm sure there were plenty of kids who grew up with it and have fond memories. All I'm saying is that we can see why he never went national like Mr. Dressup. I suppose Buckaneezer Scrooge is still something of a spin-off of the Buckshot show. I can't keep saying that without laughing. It's just going to be impossible. It features puppet characters from that show in the various non-Scrooge roles. It's an unsettling, low-budget kids show. Of course there are puppets. There's even a ventriloquist dummy. The opening credits really put us off to a great start, as they make it clear that no one bothered to look up how to spell Ebenezer. Not the first time a special's gotten that wrong, despite the fact that it's in the book they're adapting. The opening credits also offer apologies to Charles Dickens, which is considerate, but as you'll see, Dickens isn't actually at the top of the list of people who deserve apologies from this. The Bob Cratchit character is Ben Scratchit, played by Buckshot character Benny the Bear, performed by Jim Lewis. Lewis was Barge's creative partner who co-wrote this special, wrote the original songs, and performed all the puppet characters. He's at least credited as character voices, but other sources suggest he was the regular puppeteer as well. Like with Rock and Roll Christmas, this is hard to find information on. We don't have charity workers or a nephew Fred, but we do get Scrooge talking with Scratchit about not wanting to give to the poor.
Are there no workhouses? Are there no prisons?
I don't know, sir. I guess there are.
And another thing, Ben Scratchit. If I gave all my money to the poor, they'd no longer be poor, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And those do-gooders down at the Save the Poor Foundation would be out of work.
In fact, this Scrooge must have seen Mickey's Christmas Carol. Obviously, the gist of this scene comes right from the book, but the comedic argument of, if I give to the poor, they won't be poor anymore, and I don't want to put charity workers out of a job on Christmas, comes right from Mickey's Christmas Carol, and the album it was based on. Scrooge then breaks into song, because apparently this 25-minute special also needs to be a musical. Okay, there's only 2 original songs, but still. Scrooge sings, Money Means the Most to Me, another song in the Scrooge sings about why he's a miser category.
I know I'll never get enough. I must confess I love the stuff. Money means the most to me.
It's no Ringle Ringle for Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. It also sounds a bit like Pink Floyd's Money, which I'm sure someone thought was amusing. Ron Barge's Scrooge is all the way over the line into caricature, which tends to be the case when you sing about how great greed is. There's also a running joke where he forgets the phrase bah humbug and replaces it with words like flubug or jitterbug. Hilarious. He's also very mumbly, and it's occasionally hard to make out what he's saying. From the other clips I've seen of Ron Barge, this seems par for the course.
I thought I saw Farley, my old business partner. It can't be him. It can't be him. He died many years ago. Must be my indigestion. Oh.
Scrooge's house is also not appropriate for the character. He's got a ton of candles lit and he seems to have multiple fancy clocks. What happened to him being a miser? He eats gruel because it's cheap, but then his house is nice and well lit. The Marley equivalent is the ventriloquist dummy Farley because with that name they had to. There's yet another scene that feels reminiscent of Mickey's Christmas Carol.
I had a link every time I robbed a widow or swindled the poor.
Oh, and sometimes both on the same day.
Remember when I was alive, I robbed the widows and swindled the poor?
Yes, and all in the same day.
Really like that one, eh, Ron? Funny. The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future are all played by Barge's puppet Clyde the Owl in different costumes. Sure, Muppets these are not, but if this was a good adaptation, I'd be fine looking past the fact that they're puppets. Sadly, it's not a good adaptation. Something I've noticed about a lot of shorter adaptations is that they just can't get Christmas past right. Sure, it's hard to keep all the scenes in a shorter adaptation, but all you need to communicate is that Scrooge had some challenges but was ultimately an upbeat person with a positive outlook before the world hardened him. If you make any suggestion that he was always miserly, you completely defeat the purpose of these scenes at all. The 1949 TV adaptation suggested that Scrooge was always unpleasant and his school friends hated him for it. And Buckaneezer Scrooge does the same. He's transported to his old school, where he sees his classmates talking about how cruel and miserly he is.
Do you know what Buckaneezer Scrooge did to me the other day at lunch?
What?
No, what?
Maybe
What
you
did
shouldn't
do?
tell
He
us.
stuck my pigtails in the inkwell.
Oh,
just
dear.
because I wouldn't trade my chili for his gruel sandwiches.
Old Scrooge seems to think that his classmates liked him, but now he's learning they don't. How is this the reveal of the Christmas past scenes? He learned some things about how people feel about him in the future, but not the past. Do people think it's funnier if Scrooge was always a jerk? I mean, if you're doing outright parody, that could work, but Buccaneezer Scrooge isn't that. Be fair, I don't know what it is. It's trying to be funny at points and failing, but it's also straightforward in a lot of ways. Maybe I'm just missing years of Buckshot show lore required to properly understand this. The special also seems to think that gruel is hilarious because young Scrooge apparently even eats gruel sandwiches. Not sure how that would work. We then cut to Farley's deathbed, where Scrooge is there with him, complaining that he's not at work. He can't wait for him to die, and then he makes him sign over everything to him before he dies. What's the point of showing Scrooge this? He knows it happened. He knows how he was. You haven't even shown that he was ever any different. There's also a hilarious airplane joke.
You sure were a cold fish, Scrooge.
Well, surely you don't believe everything you've seen here?
Yes, I do. And don't call me Shirley.
Great. Top tier original humor in 1985. It's in the Christmas present portion, however, that Buccaneezer Scrooge truly goes off the rails. We've talked about specials going off the rails before. Some of them get very weird. This goes off the rails in a way no special has yet. I need to know about the production of this because there are 3 separate baffling decisions in just a matter of minutes. I've been hinting at the fact that Buccaneezer Scrooge may have borrowed a bit too liberally from Mickey's Christmas Carol, but here it becomes abundantly clear that it's outright plagiarism. Compare Scrooge's first meeting with the ghost of Christmas Present from Mickey's Christmas Carol.
It's the food of generosity, which you have long denied your fellow man.
Generosity? Ha! Nobody has ever shown me generosity.
You've never given them reason
To the one from Buccaneezer Scrooge.
I want to show you some of the joyous things that happen because people show each other their love through their generosity to each other.
Well, nobody ever showed me any generosity.
Well, you never gave anyone a reason to show you any generosity.
That whole exchange about generosity is not from the book in any way. It's just from Mickey. He stole it and changed the order of words like a child plagiarizing an essay. Marge then follows this exchange with,
You've spent your whole life being a despicable miser, consumed by greed.
Well, nobody's perfect.
"Oh hey, that sounds familiar too."
Yes, that was before you became a miserable miser, consumed by greed.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Hey, Ron Barge, didn't you entertain children teaching them values like, I don't know, honesty? Then you go and plagiarize Mickey's Christmas Carol and give yourself the credit for it. Classy. I'm glad you weren't famous outside of Alberta. Believe it or not, this isn't the only thing Ron Barge stole. Appropriately enough for this season of the podcast, Ron Barge stole from both Mickey Mouse and the Muppets. But Colin, you might say, the Muppets Christmas Carol didn't exist yet, and you'd be right. It's even weirder. Ron Barge includes a Muppet song in this and doesn't credit it. Look through the closing credits and you will see nothing to reference the fact that The Christmas Wish is in here. The song originates from John Denver and the Muppets: A Christmas Together, a TV special and corresponding soundtrack album. Barge simply plays the track from the album in his special with what is clearly Kermit the Frog singing. However, Barge has his own puppet lip sync to it while a child looks in a store window. Oh, sure. I believe that you also happen to sing exactly like Jim Henson, Ron Barge. I'm sure no one in Alberta's even heard of the Muppets. You'll get away with this. It still gets weirder. As the song goes on, we get some random Christmas images and scenes intercut, including a family decorating a tree. The editing is extremely choppy and unprofessional. Then, someone drops the angel that's supposed to go at the top of the tree, and the music drops out and is replaced with synth music that sounds like it belongs in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Why are we suddenly getting a trippy psychedelic sequence? Then, Scrooge is outside the Scratchet's window, where he sees the family of puppets having dinner. Like in Mickey's Christmas Carol, shocker, I know, it's Tiny Tim who raises the toast to Scrooge, not the father. By the way, this is all we get of Christmas present too. Of course, they could have included more if they didn't bother with the uncredited Muppet song. Christmas Yet to Come is just a scene of the Cratchits and then the graveyard. At the graveyard, the close-ups never match the wide shots, which is distracting. Barge really leans into the mumbling here, and it's just too much.
No, no, I'm not the man. I've changed. Not this, please. No, no, Spirit, please, please. No, I'm not the man. Oh, no, 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 no. Please, I've changed.
There's no way to evoke drama when you sound this ridiculous. On Christmas morning, Scrooge ruins the surprise of the turkey by insisting that the Scratchets come to his house at 3, where he raises Bob's salary. However, there's one little detail that sounds familiar.
And how much do I pay you?
2 shillings a week, sir. No, I'm sorry. Since I started doing your laundry, I get 2.5 shillings a week.
You even took the laundry thing from Mickey's Christmas Carol. You're trying to get caught. Scrooge then sings a song called When the Spirit Moves You about his new outlook. A song that apparently decided rhymes and rhythm are just optional for songwriting.
When the spirit moves you, you just gotta go with it. It took a while, but now I understand. The thing that matters most in this life that we're living is the love and goodwill of your fellow man.
There is a popular song this sounds like, but I can't place it, so if you can identify it, I'll give you a shout out. I'll admit it's a little catchy. By this point in the broadcast, I was much more interested in the closing credits. Would they credit the writers of Mickey's Christmas Carol? Would they credit Jim Henson? They don't. They do, however, play more of that Muppet song over the credits. What was going on here? A 24-minute adaptation of A Christmas Carol that fills it with scenes that aren't in the book and don't inform character, as well as a song right out of an entirely different Christmas special that he doesn't credit. I'm not going to run Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas through the adaptation meters. It's not really an adaptation. It's just Scrooge learning to appreciate rock and roll through a bunch of performances. Okay, but Buckaneezer Scrooge, I will. Let's see where that one lands. 18.5. A shockingly low 18.5 points. Well, folks, we have a new low scorer. There aren't any unique plot points to this one either. It does seem obsessed with Scrooge eating gruel, so I will say I've never seen a more gruel-centric adaptation. Fun fact, this is the first adaptation to score absolutely no points in the Christmas past portion of the story. For an adaptation that literally steals from Mickey's Christmas Carol, it sure doesn't take much from Charles Dickens. Of course, when approached with the plagiarism accusations, Ron Barge used a classic plagiarist's argument and said that both Buckaneezer Scrooge and Mickey's Christmas Carol were based on the Christian hymn "O Happy Day," which is in the public domain. I'm sorry if you're nostalgic for this one, but I don't have much patience for plagiarism. This is a work that's in the public domain. You can do whatever you want with it, but you choose to steal from somebody else. It's as lazy as people who use AI today. All right, so that is two very strange versions of A Christmas Carol as promised. Yeah, these are something else, huh? Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas. I first learned about this just last year. I don't believe it was actually because I was setting up this project. I think I already had it going, and I saw someone post about it on social media, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to get to this one. and I ended up watching it last year just out of curiosity, and then I watched it again to write this. And yeah, it's a lot. None of the words in the title are all that accurate. It has some to do with Christmas, less to do with rock and roll, and even less to do with Scrooge. So it's kind of descending order there. Uh, I mean, the arrangements are just bad. Again, the one exception, the music just to me is not interesting, and I like music from all genres, all eras. I mean, I have my favorites, of course, but this just really soulless kind of 80s spin on rock with just the most generic Christmas songs imaginable. You can just hear the paychecks being cashed. And it doesn't look like a lot of them want to be there. I mean, I suppose Mike Love does. He's sure in a lot of this. And I don't know. The biggest mystery of this, and I am not the first to bring this up. I've listened to other reviews of this. Every single person brings up Bridget because A, it's the only interesting thing about this special. Who is she? Where'd she come from? And two, at least in my take, and I have to assume from most people who watch this, they'll acknowledge she's the best thing in it. She is an incredibly talented singer. It's a really beautiful moment, actually. I like the song. I like the take on the song. It's not overproduced like everything else. And yeah, she does really well with it. I don't know who she is again. If it's her choice, she doesn't want to be in re-releases. Good for her. That's fine. If it's anybody else, they're making a big mistake because there's not much interesting in this. Don't really know what to do with this, but I'm just mentioning it if you find yourself wanting to look at the people who are in this. When I was researching Bobby Goldsboro, who I admit I don't know much about at all, I read some of the most horrifying things a person has ever been accused of. So yeah, content warning if you go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, it's pretty scary. I didn't know how to handle that, but I thought I should at least mention it in case someone ends up looking into the people in this special. Yeah, you can find the stuff from his divorce hearing, and yeah, it's pretty horrifying. I was aware, I would say, of most, if not all, of the artists in this, Bridget aside, when I first saw it, but outside of like the Beach Boys, I think that's probably the only one I could have told you like a good bit about. I realized the Beach Boys aren't actually in this; it's just Mike Love and then Dean. Most of the other ones are like, oh, yeah, I know that name. I might know a song by them, but they don't really have anything interesting in this. Everyone's just kind of there and singing the song, and then someone else shows up to the same ski resort, sings their song. Jack Elam, a weird choice for Scrooge. Probably just the nearest old man they could find. Hey, you want to do this? You'll laugh because it's so ridiculous. It's not the worst of these because, again, you'll find some enjoyment perhaps out of how ridiculous it is. It's more entertaining than some of the other bad ones because it's so silly. Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas. Again, if you know anything about the history of this, I'm really curious because there's an album and there's the TV special, and I can't quite get the years figured out. Which came first? Were they concurrent? Did the album come first? Did the TV special come first? I'm very curious about that. So if you were there when it came out and you had the album or watched the special or both, let me know. I am curious what the history of that is. But yeah, Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas. It's easy to find. It's barely an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Buckaneezer Scrooge, yeah, I've said a lot. I don't really need to go into a ton more about that, except it is right at the bottom of the barrel. I think Rich Little's Christmas Carol is probably more painful to get through, but this one loses the points because he blatantly steals twice. If for some reason, I honestly don't know how this could be the case, but if I missed something, I really tried to do my homework on this, but if I missed something and he credited the Muppets in some way that I'm not aware of, and also Mickey, not Mickey, obviously you don't credit Mickey the Mouse as the guy who wrote it, but the writers of Mickey's Christmas Carol and credited everything used in this, and I totally missed it. I mean, yeah, let me know. I feel like I didn't see it if he did. I watched the credits. I tried to find this on IMDb. Yeah, it's clear in my mind that he didn't. But hey, again, maybe I missed something entirely, and if I do, I'll take back what I said. But it's pretty obviously plagiarized in my mind, and then just plays a song completely without referencing the origin of it, the Muppets album with John Denver. I don't know what to do with that. I was in shock when I first saw it. I've seen at least one of the Muppets and John Denver specials. I didn't grow up with that one. I grew up with a lot of Muppet stuff. I didn't grow up with that one. So I don't quite know that one by heart. So it was more of a, is that Jim Henson? Not, oh, it's that song from John Denver and the Muppets of Christmas Together. I'll admit I didn't know that. But the fact that it was so obviously not just Jim Henson, but his Kermit the Frog voice. Like, you're not fooling anybody. It's just so ridiculous. I was genuinely shocked. And then the fact that it turned into a weird psychedelic sequence. Plus, just like I said, all the obvious steals from Mickey's Christmas Carol. Like, what do you do with that? How do you so shamelessly rip that off? Just for those curious, I made a joke in the episode about the classic plagiarists argument where I referenced the George Harrison My Sweet Lord case. I don't know who this is for, just putting it out into the universe. I make the joke. I actually genuinely think the argument George Harrison made of, oh no, it's actually from Oh Happy Day by the Edwin Hawkins singer, actually was the inspiration for My Sweet Lord, not the 60s pop song He's So Fine. If you listen to it, he's completely correct in saying that, and that's in the public domain. Anyway, I don't know who's tuning into this for my thoughts on 1970s music court cases, but that's a bonus you get just for free. Anyway, that's completely off topic. I just had to throw that joke in there because I couldn't help myself. Yeah, Buckaneezer Scrooge, 24 minutes. Maybe if you were a fan of his show, it was hilarious. I don't know. It doesn't seem to me, and again, I was not a fan. I've never heard of this guy before doing this. It doesn't seem like he's playing the buckshot character. It seems like he's just playing Ebenezer Scrooge. Again, I've seen him in character as this buckshot guy. He has like obviously dyed hair, and it's weird. It just he looks like Ebenezer Scrooge, so, gray hair, where it dresses like Ebenezer Scrooge would. So I never even thought of it. And then I looked up a clip of his kids show. I think it was like in the 90s. He was still going. Really, really bad dye job on his hair. Not the best look for him. So yeah, that's the Buckshot show. I'm sure people in Alberta have fond memories of it, but yeah, you can tell why it didn't break out. The lone saving grace of Buckaneezer Scrooge. The songs aren't well written and they aren't good, but I remember them. They have tunes. They don't have verses and choruses in the traditional sense. They're poorly constructed, in fact. But I'll admit that second song that I played, When the Spirit Moves You, like, it's a little catchy. It's got a little beat to it. That's barely saying something, but, it is a song in one sense. And the songs in Original's Christmas Carol all sound like commercials for songs, like I said in that episode, so. And this is half the length of Original's Christmas Carol, so, if you're forcing me to watch one again, I'll probably watch this, because it also has a Muppet song in it. Not honestly, but it does have a Muppet song in it. Buckaneezer Scrooge and Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas. Two very, very strange versions of the tale, but thank you for listening to this episode. Next week, I am going to be covering a straight adaptation of A Christmas Carol from 1984, which is one of the most famous versions. I talked early in the podcast, I brought this up other times, that I think there are 3 versions that tend to be grouped together as the best. Most people's favorite still seems to be 1951, Alistair Sim, the classic version Scrooge. Second seems to be Muppet Christmas Carol, which I'm going to cover later in this season. And the third that I've seen tends to be the 1984 version, George C. Scott, A Christmas Carol, which I'm covering next week. So this is one of them. That'll be next week's episode. Thank you for listening to another episode of Scrooge, A Christmas Carol podcast. Scrooge, A Christmas Carol podcast is written, edited, and hosted by Colin Murr. Theme music is Christmas Day by TRG Banks, and TRG Banks' Snowfall is used for interstitial music. Clips in this episode are from Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas, Buckaneezer Scrooge, A Special Sesame Street Christmas, Mickey's Christmas Carol, and a public domain recording of The Sailor's Hornpipe from 1913. Leaving a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, as well as liking, commenting, and subscribing on YouTube will be a big help to me. You can also back me on Patreon for early episodes, bonus episodes, and the right to vote in polls for future episodes. Link is in the description. I'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of Scrooge, A Christmas Carol podcast. Until then, make sure to live in the past, the present, and the future, and ensure that the spirits of all three strive within you. In fact, this Scrooge must have seen Muckies. In fact, this Scrooge must have seen Mickey's Christmas Carol